Hello once again. In this session, we'll discuss more about the geography and the geometry data types. So, when you talk about geography data types or geometry data types, there are two aspects that you're dealing with. So, one thing is basically it's basically the Euclidean or the planar surface that we can consider is basically the x and y axis. That's the geometry data type, and SQL Server provides us a way in which we can really store some data which is pertaining to geometry and do whatever calculations we need. And it also has a lot of inbuilt functions which we can use to derive into a lot of conclusions. The second data type is basically the geography data type, and that really considers the geodetic or the round surface, right? So when you say that if you want to calculate the distance between, say, two coordinates or two places, right, from say place A to place B, you cannot really just subtract the two distances or the two coordinates and then come to a conclusion. So there are some inbuilt methods which help you to do so. So that's exactly what we are going to discuss over here. So let me quickly fire up Management Studio so that we can walk through some very basic examples. What I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to create a database called as, say, Spatial DB. And let me create a table over here called something, and we'll create a couple of columns. We'll call it as ID and an integer. And I'm just going to keep this as entity specification. I mean, I really don't care what this column is, but just so that we have some data to work with. And the second column is where we are going to store our geometry data type. So I'm just going to call this as spatial data. And the data type is going to be geometry. Let me call this table as spatial DB, or just spatial because it's a table. And you see that we have just created a table with absolutely no data in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some values into it so that we can have a quick walkthrough with an example. And insert into spatial, I should have called the table something else so that we don't have a keyword conflict, but anyways. And what I'm going to do over here is initially I'm going to insert a point and with the coordinates 7 and 12, so x and y. So let's just insert this and let's make sure that we are pointing to the right database. Let's try that one more time. Okay, so now when we just select the data, you see that the spatial data is represented here. But one strange thing that you find here is 3 tabs. So apart from results and messages, there is also a spatial results tab. So let me just click on that, and you see that there is basically a graphical representation of your data over here. Now we have just inserted a point, so maybe that's not visible. Let's try that one more time by inserting something else. And this time I'm going to insert a line string. And it basically, as the name suggests, it's just going to insert a line from 0, 0 to say 7, 8, just x and y coordinates. And let's try this one more time. And if I just select this, I should see that my spatial data is represented over here. When I click on the spatial results, you can see that the the line string that we just defined has been drawn over here. Likewise, there are like many functions which you can use. Let me just show you one more thing, like say what a polygon. Let me say it should start from 0, 0 to 8, 5, and then it should go up till 9, 6 to 10, 0 to 0, 0. I'm just choosing some random numbers over here. So let's see. let me insert this and let me select some data and let me click on spatial results. So you see that, this is the polygon that we defined. Now this is just plain data insertion that I have just shown you, but there are a ton of functions which help you with calculations also. I would highly recommend that, to just go through that functions. You can just refer MSDN. But there are a couple of ways also in which you can retrieve data. For instance, this I can just say comma spatial data dot toString, and that will basically give me say spatial data. So you see that, that will give me a plain English text instead of this, geometry data. And you see that these are the data that we just inserted, and we are just reading it in plain English. I can just show you one more thing. Let me just have something like spatial data as GML, as spatial in text, something like that. So let's select this, and you see that it's kind of an XML representation of the data that you inserted. So let me just click on something, and you see that it actually gives you the coordinates in a nice XML format. So this is basically the two-dimensional plane that we are considering over here, and there are a ton of functions you need to look for doing the needs that you need to achieve. And again, it's just two-dimensional. So when we want to extend it to a three-dimensional, that's where geography data type comes into place. So here we are dealing with latitudes and longitudes and basically representing stuff on a map or a sphere or something like that. And needless to say, even geography data type has a lot of functions which you can use to calculate distances and whatnot. So before we go into too much of details into that, I'd like to show you two things. So all the geography data that you have is basically you can get into something called as a shapefile. So shapefile will have just the geography data of what you need to represent in a map. It can have something like as simple as give me the population of each state in the United States. So you can just have a shapefile which will have the geography information along with the population information, and then you can really use that and plot it in a map or something like that. So while surfing through the net, I actually found two links over here. Let me just quickly fire up a browser. Oops, sorry. And then you see that this is basically a tool that helps you to upload a shapefile. So if you have a shapefile, this tool will take that as an input and then create the necessary tables for you, and then it will upload it to any database that you want, and then you can really play around with that. Also, I found that the vdspec.com has a lot of royalty-free shapefiles that you can use. I would just suggest you to read through their terms and conditions, but this is a good website that I found, and we could just use some of this in our demo. Let's see, world data, street map. Okay, let's see, US states, and so this is a zip file. If I just extract it, you will find that there are a couple of shape files over here. And let me also download this tool for you. Back to download page. There should be a download link somewhere. Yep, let's try this. And let me just quickly extract it. And you'll find a exe file over here. Let me just double click on this one. And what I need to do is I need to select first of all the shape file, and then this is basically your server name. And let me take spatial DB over here. So you have a server name and a database name, and I need geography data, and these are the columns which it has. So I'm just going to upload things to the database. So you see that I had about 51 rows, and if I just refresh my table over here, I should find another table called as USA_ST, which is basically all these columns. However, if you see the last column, which is of like type geography. So let me just select the first 1000 rows in this. That's just 51 rows actually. And you see that for each of the state, and the state information in geography is represented this way, and then it has a couple of other data associated with it as well. And if you click on the spatial results, you find that it is represented as a map. So you can actually plot any of the data that is provided here along with the geography data in a map. So let me just select, say, females, and then it gives you a count of the number of females corresponding to that particular geography. So it is just plotted the data in a map. Of course, you can really customize this however you want, and then all you need is associated with a the geography data type and have the appropriate shapefile or something like that, and then you can really plot it to a map. And also, I would recommend you to use the MSDN for exploring other functions which you can have to calculate distances, etc., and then really use them into your SQL as and when necessary. Thank you.